Hello and welcome. I'm Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regard to atheist and deconversion issues and any issue related to those issues. Today I want to continue on through our journey through the book of Job here on Sundays with the Rabyd Atheist for September 24th, 2023. And so far in this journey we have discovered God basically taking the accusation of Satan seriously a couple times and thus pretty much destroying, taking all of Job's stuff, killing all his kids, attacking his health, and we left Job kind of sitting in the dust with his three friends who are also mourning with him. And for 7 days, there's nothing but silence. Nobody says a word to him. Nobody says a word to Job. Job doesn't say anything either. And what we have in chapter 3 is Job's Lament. Now today I want to cover Job's Lament. It won't take that long because it's not that long of a thing. There's just a few points to make from it. Mostly what we're going to get is a picture of a man who's kind of been through the ringer, and so he's just sounding off. But I actually want to go through a verse at the end of the book because it's kind of a key to interpreting the dialogues that will come up next. So, but first let's talk about Job's Lament. And Job says, "Afterwards Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, let the day perish on which I was to be born, and the night which said, a boy is conceived. May that day be darkness. Let not God above care for it, nor light shine on it. Let darkness and black gloom claim it. Let the clouds settle on it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. For as for that night, let darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful sound enter it. Let those curse the day, who are prepared to rouse Leviathan. Let the stars of its twilight be darkened. Let it wait for light, but have none. And let it not see in the breaking dawn. Because I did not shut the opening of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. Why do I not die at birth? Come forth from the womb and expire. Why did the knees receive me? And why did the brush that I should suck? And now I would have lain down and been quiet, and I would have slept then. I would have been at rest. For kings and with counselors of the earth, who built ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold and were fitting their houses with silver, or that like a miscarriage, which it is discarded, it would not be, as infants that never saw light. There is the wicked cease from raging, and there the weary are at rest. The prisoners are at ease together. They do not hear the voice of the taskmaster, and the small and the great are there, and the slave and the free from his master. Why is light given to him who suffers, and life to the bitter soul, who long for death, but there is none, and dig for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice greatly and exult when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my groaning comes at the sight of my food, and my cries pour out like water. For what I fear comes upon me, and what dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet, and I am not at rest, but turmoil comes." Job's Lament basically has three parts. The first part, he's basically bemoaning the day he was born. The second part is kind of him wishing to be part of the grave. The Jewish conception of hell really isn't hell as we would conceive it. This conception isn't even really Jewish. Job kind of predates, it's believed, the Pentateuch. So, he doesn't have that viewpoint. The ancient people of his area simply believed that when you died, you joined the grave. Okay, you became, disembodied spirits that just kind of ceased to exist. what they were trying to do later on after the patriarchs was to achieve Abraham's bosom, which is a place where the righteous go. But anybody else in the wicked or whatever would just simply cease to be. They would just simply wait for the end of the world. Very different viewpoint of the afterlife, and that's what Job is wishing for. He'd wish that he had just went to Sheol, that he had just skipped all this suffering part, never had been born, or if he had been born, just to go to the grave where everybody goes. And then he kind of ends it with, his fear has come upon him, his dread has come upon him. The very thing that he had feared and dreaded and all this stuff, he had turned to God to protect him, okay, but that hadn't worked, okay. And so he's just lamenting his sorry state. He wishes he'd never been born, wishes he was dead. He's just in stress, okay. It is a very sad picture of a man who has pretty much lost everything. I've been depressed a good chunk of my life. Never wished for suicide, but I can relate to Job's lament about wishing he'd gotten, in my case, when there've been a couple times where I wish a truck or a car would jump the curb, and hit me, take me out, but never suicidal. But I get the picture here. The emotion here is pretty deep, and it resonates with me. Job, I still think, is kind of it's like he's beginning this search, trying to figure out why. Okay, he's trying to figure out why it happened. Okay, now, a lot of people have put forth a lot of explanations, but the fact of the matter is we already know the why of the story. Job doesn't know, but we know. We know that everything that Job has suffered is because Satan accused him to God, and God went along with it to test him. Okay, and God has literally kind of betrayed Job and let Job take on all this suffering simply because God is trying to settle an argument with Satan. Okay, that's basically what it boils down to. We know the why of the story. We know that. Okay, Job doesn't know that, but he's lamenting all of this stuff. And he's in this state. And in this state, we begin to have this dialogue in the book of Job between Job's three friends and himself. They're going to go back and forth. A friend will talk, he will respond, and it'll go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, the thing about it is, having read the book of Job many, many times, and one of the rules of interpretation, if the book itself gives you kind of an insight on how to interpret certain parts of the book, then you really need to make note of that when you read through it. Okay, what is going on here? And thankfully for us, Job actually gives us an interpretive note, okay, at the very end of the book in 42:7. Okay, in fact, 42:7 through 9 kind of indicates the whole thing, but what we hear from the mouth of the character of God here is this. When they're getting ready to end the story, it says, "It came about after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against you and against your two friends, because they have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." Okay, so that kind of, as they have this dialogue, remember that every time one of Job's friends talks, okay, he is not speaking right as far as God is concerned, okay, about himself and probably about Job as well. Okay, they got it wrong, okay? So whenever you hear one of these three guys talk and they're accusing Job of something or they're talking about God, they are getting it wrong. Whereas Job, when he speaks, is getting it right. Okay, now, whether this is actually God doesn't matter. It just points that the people at that time, when they look through this dialogue, when they're reading this dialogue of Job, they're thinking to themselves, okay, Job's got it right, he's the righteous one, and these three friends of his have it wrong. Okay, so whenever you read through the dialogue, after you've read this book once, you start reading it a second time, that should stick in your head. Oh, these guys were not speaking correctly about what Job was going through or what God was doing, but Job was. Okay, now, there's certain generalities that both sides are going to say about God, and I don't think that that's what God's talking about. I think what it's talking about is why God does things, okay? Why the character of God in the story did things or was doing things, and what reason why Job was going through what he was going through is a big theme in that dialogue, because these three friends of his are going to continue to say, this is why you're going through this, and Job's going to say, no, I don't think so. Okay, it's this back and forth dialogue. And that's kind of how I'm going to treat the rest of the book. I'm not going to do one chapter at a time. I want to, Eliphaz is going to speak here for a couple of chapters, and, Job is going to respond for a couple chapters. So I'll probably do all 4 chapters next time, but kind of, hey, this is what they said, okay? And this is what they did. Now, I'm not going to read all that. So next time, make sure you read, the next, your homework is to read the next 4 chapters of Job, Job 4 through 7, okay? And so when we talk about this guy's initial, accusation against Job, and then Job's response to that accusation, we need to also keep in mind that interpretive note that they are not speaking right, but Job is, okay? So that kind of colors our interpretation a little bit, but rightly so, because we're letting the book interpret itself. Okay, that's good hermeneutics, okay? Hermeneutics, or even just good looking at literature. If the literature tells you later on, hey, this is how you should go back and look at it, many times I've had that happen in stories, and I'll go back and reread that part and go, oh, that makes a lot more sense. And that's kind of what's going to happen. As we go through the dialogue, we want to keep mindful of that, this guy, his 2 friends, were not speaking right, but Job was. Okay, Job was speaking right. Okay, a couple of comments on the series so far I wanted to deal with. One person asked, who is making Job, who is punishing Job, Satan or God? And my response to that is not being punished. He's being made to suffer. Okay, punishment implies that he did something wrong. Okay, and that's not the case here. In fact, we don't have anything that he'd done any wrong. Even God says so. He caused me to lift my hand against him, even though he's guiltless. He has no guilt. Okay, he's, have you considered him again? And then Satan says, well, touch his health and see what happens. And we need to remember that Job isn't really being punished for anything he did wrong. He's being tested through suffering, okay? And that's the real question is God just in doing that? I don't think he is, okay? I don't think he is just to do that. In fact, you're supposed to be, Job's considered a friend of God. If God's my friend in this context, with friends like that, I don't need enemies, okay? I just don't. And so this is not about suffering of Job. So it doesn't really matter if Satan or God is punishing Job, because he's not really being punished. Okay, now he is being caused to suffer at the hands of Satan, but God has to, Satan can't do diddly squat without God's permission. So God is still the ultimate one that's responsible for the suffering of Job, because he's the one that allowed Satan to do it. Okay, Satan couldn't do anything, because he even says, you hedged him around with protection. I can't touch him. Okay, so until God opens the gate and lets Satan in, Satan really can't do anything. So the ultimate person responsible for what Job is going through is God. There was also a few comments about Job's self-righteous, or trying to give some sort of rationale for Job suffering on Job. There's something wrong with Job that causes him to suffer. I want to deal with that comment too, because as far as this point in the story, no, there isn't anything. In fact, God even says, once again, he's blameless. He hasn't done anything wrong. Okay, you caused me to lift my hand against my servant Job, even though he was blameless. Okay, is God's own words. Okay, so you're either going to have to say, are you saying God was wrong? That God in the story is wrong? That he's inaccurate about Job's righteousness? Because God is declaring Job righteous. So are you saying there's something wrong with God's observation? Okay, this is the real rub of the story, because People who want to put something on Job are not considering the story correctly. Okay? The story says the main character, God, the God that you all conceive, knows everything, is not going to, he's not giving Satan a lie. He's saying, hey, man, you caused me to lift my hand against him, and even he takes responsibility. And so you can't say that Job was self-righteous because there's nowhere in the text up to that point. And later on, we'll see what happens. But really, once again, Job says everything, what he says about God is right, and what, his friends say about God is wrong, according to God's own words. Okay, so, you gotta let that guide your interpretation. You can't read into the passage that he's self-righteous or he's committed some sin. Okay, because that's not the way God describes Job. Okay, the character of God in this story does not describe Job that way. Now, if you're a believer, some of you are out there are obviously believers, and you believe that this is the Word of God and it's inerrant, or it gives an accurate picture of what God wants, and that God isn't a lie, He knows everything, whatever vision you have, whatever imaginary view of God you have, okay, from my perspective, you have to be consistent with that, okay, because if you're going to say that the God that inspired this book inspired this passage, then, and we're actually getting an accurate picture of God in his throne room and what he says, you can't say that Job is self-righteous or he's committed some sort of sin, because the text says the exact opposite. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, see, if you can pin something on Job, then God's somehow slightly justified, although I think we could still make an argument that he went overboard. Okay, but if there is no justification along the lines of Job doing something wrong, okay, then this story takes a darker turn, okay, because God is basically trying to settle a bet with Satan, okay, and that's the only reason. We know the why. The reason why Job is going through this is Satan challenged God on Job's loyalty, okay, period, end of discussion. Okay, that's what the why is. That's why he's going through all this stuff. Okay, and it takes a real sinister turn when you start looking at the character of God in this story, because he's not really all that good then, because he will literally put some of his best servants, his most loyal servants to him, who he knows is perfectly loyal, through the ringer just to prove a point to somebody else. I'm sorry, I know the Norse deities. Odin isn't as cruel. Okay, I mean, Odin will sacrifice anybody to keep Ragnarok from happening, okay, including his own servants. And his own servants understand that, so they're willing to make that sacrifice. But in this case, God isn't even telling Job what's going on, and he just puts Job through the ringer, and all to settle a bet. Okay, I don't know what they were betting over, but basically Satan challenges his God a couple of times about Job's loyalty, and God says, okay, well, test him. Okay, not punish him, test him. You're just testing his loyalty. There's no punishment here because Job hasn't done anything wrong. He's not self-righteous. The text doesn't say that. Okay, in fact, I would say that as we go through the dialogue, you're going to see some of his friends accuse him of being self-righteous, and Job's going to say, no, I don't think so. And then later on, God says Job was right and they were wrong. Okay, so you can either read the text and let it guide your understanding, or you can try to play, some eisegesis or reading into the text games in order to make this more palatable. The choice is yours. Okay, but if you read it as it's written with its intention, God is not a nice guy. Okay, he is not a nice guy. Okay, and I don't think the people that wrote this wanted to portray God as a good guy or a nice guy. Okay, they wanted to portray God as powerful and sovereign. Okay, and could do whatever the hell he wanted to do. Okay, it doesn't paint the picture of God as good. Okay, and that's the problem, because all you want to keep God good, and Job must be a sinner somehow, so you're trying to keep your doctrine against bad interpretation. You can't do that. Okay, I'm not going to let you do that. Okay, spent too many times studying the Bible, studying this story in particular, to allow that to happen. I once got after a fellow minister. I said, where does it say that in the text? Okay, so you're eisegesing the text. You're reading into it what you want to be there. Okay, I hate to tell you this, it's not there. It's not there. All right, that's going to be it for today. Just so you know, next time I'll be probably doing about 4 chapters, chapter 4 through 7. I'll be basically taking the tact of, one of Job's friends is going to say something. I'm going to talk about what he says and what his response is. And we're going to have to discuss, based on our interpretive model, what is wrong about what his friends say and what is right about what Job says. Okay, and what are the implications of that? And that's something that we need to go forward with. Okay, so we're just kind of looking at this as literature. We're just kind of breaking it down. Okay, and then I'll do that, with the next person and how, Job will respond to that. All right, a few other housekeeping items this week. On Wednesday, I believe the cosmological argument is coming up. That is one out the day. When I do my deconversion story on Friday, we'll be going into my first ministry job, where I was a Christian education director and then a pastor officially, and got my license to preach during that time. So I actually officially make it to the ministry in the next one. But my struggles will continue, and we'll talk about them. For those of you that haven't noticed, yes, I'm supposed to have an interview early October with Atheist Republic, Cape Town, South Africa. And then also Tim Mills is going to be interviewing me, I think, in early November, all subject to change without notice, of course, because the internet and life are funny places, but those are the 2 interviews I have set up very shortly. The channel's growing. I think I was high water mark of 988. Currently it's 986, and I know what that is. Usually, the thing about YouTube is there's a lot of troll users that sign up and they subscribe to a bunch of stuff, and then they make a nuisance out of themselves, and then YouTube removes them, and so then they stop being your subscribers. So what I'm really looking forward is this next moment where I really get noticed. A lot of YouTubers have complained about the fact that once you break like 970, it seems like YouTube doesn't give you the time of day as far as getting your stuff out there. It seems like they would want to do that. I recently did a survey where I kind of said the same thing. It's like, it seems like I'm getting close, but I'm not, you guys aren't really pushing me like you were before. The rapid growth has kind of dropped off quite considerably, so we'll see. I'm hoping, the watch hours and getting all that stuff set up will start to get me a little bit more attention, but not the last few weeks. Been kind of low. I think that's it. One other thing. After I get done with the arguments, me helping the apologists series. After I get done with the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, and then I think I've got a video on all the philosophical arguments, why they have to deal with a couple of issues that apologists try to do with those, and deal with that. But after that, I'm thinking about another series because I'm exploring the question: should the Rabyd Atheist go full dive 7.0 Dawkins scale atheist? Should I just straight up say there is no God? And so that's a claim, and I got to figure out what arguments there are out there for that claim. Now, I don't know how many atheist YouTubers out there that are 7.0, other than a couple. I know Aaron Ra is a 7.0 atheist, and he has several arguments. I know Christopher Hitchens, who's departed from us, he was a 7.0 atheist, and there are several others. But I don't know specifically what their arguments for atheism actually are. I've never really dove into it. I've just never been convinced by the existence of any God or deity for the last 8 years. So, other than the deist deity for a little while, but then I'm like, I'm making that up too. Deism is atheism light, or atheism with extra steps, or something to that effect. So there's that. So we'll see. I think I'm going to do a series after that one's over on exploring the arguments against the existence of God. I mean, I've spent a good deal of time exploring the arguments for the existence of God. What are the arguments against God? If you know something about that or something I could study and read, I've got a few weeks to get ready for that. So let me know. Thank you very much. Someday when we have memberships, some of those memberships will be you guys being able to tell me what videos to do next and where you want me to go. So and helping me out with that. So that's kind of one of those things that I'm looking forward to is, people that are paying the money. Hey, what do you want me to do next? That's kind of something I would love to do. All right, so there we have it. Thanks again for stopping by. I appreciate every single one of you. Like, share, subscribe, do the things that YouTubers do to videos to make them shine. And, I thank each and every one of you for everything that you've done so far. This channel doesn't exist without you, so thank you. I encourage you to live your best life. You only get one go around, so make it a good one. Make it as happy as you can. And just enjoy it. And once again, thank you for stopping by, and I will catch you next time.